This is Civic Presents, an interview with Stuart Schuffman, a.k.a. Broke-Ass Stuart.
I started making a zine, Broke-Ass Stuart's Guide Living Cheaply in San Francisco, which then became a second zine and got like the, that's the Bay Awards and stuff. And then I got that in the hands to be Lonely Planet, and they liked it. And boom, 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 I got to be a travel writer.
I will be introducing a resolution to declare October 17th, 2025, Broke-Ass Stuart Day in San Francisco.
And one of the things I've been most proud of in my life is getting to use my platform to amplify voices that don't get heard, and also giving them the opportunity to do it in their own voice.
This is Civic Presents.
San Francisco is a city of dreamers and believers, seekers and preachers, people who don't fit in anywhere else and never wanted to anyways.
Stuart Schuffman, Broke-Ass Stuart, has become an icon in 21st century San Francisco, taking a homemade zine and becoming a media influencer years before that career became a thing in this modern, all-consuming social media era. His brand is focused on ways to enjoy good food, good dive bars, and other low-cost fun in an increasingly unaffordable San Francisco. He became a host for a travel TV show, built his own media website with a diverse crew of writers and contributors, and even ran for mayor. He's celebrating the publishing of his book, The Worst of Broke-Ass Stuart, 20 Years of Love, Death, and Dive Bars. My co-worker, Cami Dominguez, took part in our interview with Stuart. Stuart, welcome to Civic Presents, and a chance to talk to you about your book and your career and how you kind of remade yourself and became kind of an influencer before there were influencers. Tell me a little bit about your book, first of all.
Yeah, so it's called The Worst of Broke-Ass Stuart because if you buy it and don't like it, I already told you. It's called, the subtitle is 20 Years of Love, Death, and Dive Bars, because I've been writing about those things for 20 plus years. It's funny, when I started working on it, I was like, oh, this will be easy. I already wrote everything. No problem. And yeah, famous last word. It took so long. I had to go through everything I've ever written before, even late night emails from myself, oh, don't forget to write about this, and I probably missed some things too, but yeah, it was a whole ordeal to get thousands of stuff, go through all that, and get it down to 350 pages, and here we are.
You moved here, so you'd gone to school in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And you spent time growing up in Texas and in LA.
I was born in LA. I moved to El Paso when I was 2, and moved to San Diego when I was 7.
Okay, so you really have had, you had kind of a Southern California vibe when you came up to Santa Cruz, which must have been like, you know what I mean? It's not like, you kind of take Northern California culture, and it really is Northern California culture. It's kind of the alternative. Well, you don't exactly have coursework. You kind of have projects you work on. It's totally unique in the UC system and things.
Oh, yeah. When I was at Santa Cruz, I didn't have grades. I was the second to last class that didn't have. It was a pass-fail, and it was narrative evaluations. And it was so your poor TAs had to write long things about each student. And so, it was great. I was there 99 to 2003, and it was glorious because I got out just before social media took over everything, so thankfully there's very little evidence of my misdeeds.
But you came here during that. So first of all, what brought you to San Francisco? Why did you decide to move to the city?
So the summer between my junior and senior year of college, I was up here for an internship at Bill Graham Presents, which no longer exists, but back then they did all the concerts. So I had an internship there for the summer, and then I met a girl, as it happens, and she was going to school here, and so it just made sense for me. And then so I spent my entire senior year of college up here every other weekend. Caltrain, what's up? And so then it just made sense. I graduated from college, came right here 2 days later because my girlfriend was up here, and I've been here ever since with 1 year in New York in the middle there.
So that explains why you also did a book about New York.
Yeah, exactly.
Places. And so you came here in about 2002?
2002, yeah.
So you were right past the dot-com collapse. I remember I worked for a couple of dot-coms. They both lasted 9 months. I have a pen, which is my remaining stock options from the second job. But the economy was flat. I mean,
It was glorious, honestly.
but it was a really exciting time because I remember it being all of this. Let's chase the money, which is what is the standard now. It was let's chase the money, and I'm here for my stock options and blah blah blah, and the madness, craziness of the first .com boom, and then everything went bust. Nobody could get a job doing that sort of work anymore, and people were reinventing themselves. I remember I went to the Metreon, and the Metreon had kind of like also kind of crashed, and they turned a big section of it in kind of a food court market swap meet thing. And I remember I went in there and there were like 3 people I talked to, and it was like, I've always wanted to do candles. So this is what I'm doing now. I used to work at suchandso.com, or
Candles.com.
yeah, it's like, well, I'm really a musician, but I came here for the tech job and it went away. But now we do gigs on the weekend, so I'm doing a gig here, and it was just like this. There wasn't excitement about it. The prices hadn't really gone down that much, but there was this kind of exciting chance to create yourself anew. So that seems like the perfect time and place to move here.
Yeah, I wasn't creating myself anew as much as I was creating myself. I was 21, 22 years old, 23 years old. So I was fresh out of college, and I wanted to do something. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I was working in a candy store in North Beach. I was working at Z Chocolate, which is still there. And somebody came in from my neighborhood from San Diego growing up, and with the woman who's now his wife. And as they were leaving, she gave me her business card and said, travel writer. And I said, I want to be a travel writer. And I decided to make myself one. And I started making a zine, Broke-Ass Stuart's Guide Living Cheaply in San Francisco, which then became a second zine and got like that's the Bay Awards and stuff. And then I got that in the hands of the Lonely Planet, and they liked it. And boom, 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 I got to be a travel writer. And I wrote about Ireland for Lonely Planet. I went to Ireland for a few months and I wrote about it. It's pretty great.
This was also during the period where we used to have things like the SF Weekly and the Guardian,
Yes.
who were the Bay Guardian, and they were basically weekly newspapers that had endless listings about what was going on in the city, all the concerts, all the events, etc. And then there were a couple of like serious pieces of journalism tucked in, right? So you'd pick it up at the bar, you'd like see what, I'm going to check that club out this weekend, or, that's going on right now. Let me get the hell out of this boring place. And you go off and do it. But that kind of faded out during the .com era as everything was kind of shifting over to looking stuff up on the web, and there wasn't a real sense of it. And you kind of stepped into that world over the next few years and kind of recreated that ability for people to find things they could do that weren't going to bust the budget, that were things that other young people like yourself at the time were going to do. So how did Broke-Ass Stuart, how did he become a creation? How did you become Broke-Ass Stuart instead of Stuart Schuffman?
Well, when I was working at a candy store and I came up with the idea to do the zine, I was like, what's a cool name? And I was like, well, I'm broke and everybody I know is broke and I know of all these cool places. So let's just, Broke-Ass Stuart stuff. I think there was a tour at the time. There might have been like a hip hop tour called like the Broke-Ass Summer Tour, Broke-Ass Summer Jam, I think. And I was like, that kind of stuck in my head. And here we are. But, it wasn't digital until 2008 or so, I'd say. Yeah, because before that I had a website and it was a place to like buy my zines and stickers and shirts and stuff. And then it had been zines, and then it had been books. The Broke-Ass Stuart's Guide Living Cheaply San Francisco as a book came out in 2007. The New York book came out in 2008. And then I realized, I could see where the wind was blowing, and it made sense to do digital. And so we started the website as like an arts and culture destination in 2008.
And so you continued slowly building this persona and this chance, and you even got to do a TV series for a while. Talk a little bit about that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, it was definitely my favorite thing I've done so far. I got to, looked at Anthony Bourdain as an example of what I wanted to do, and I got to do it. I created, it was called Young, Broken, Beautiful, and it was a TV show on IFC. And I got to travel around the U.S. exploring the weird and wonderful in different cities. We only did one season, unfortunately. And, I've got this problem where I'm always just a little before my time, because if it had come out just a couple years later, it could have been on streaming, and who knows where it could have gone. But, instead it was on a small little arts network that barely anybody had on their cable box. So it goes. I still got to do it. And it was wonderful.
And then you ran for mayor.
I did.
What on earth inspired you to run for mayor of San Francisco? And tell us when that happened and why and how and what inspired you to not just go for supervisor or the board or, Board of Education, which is the way we do it in San Francisco. We start off in the Board of Education. Well, first you get on a commission. Then you're allowed to run for the board of the school board. And then you're maybe allowed to run for the Board of Supervisors. And then maybe you can run for mayor after you've been here for 30 years. But you went and ran for mayor.
Yeah. Am I allowed to use curse words? I don't know. Or is this?
You will, but I'll have to beep it.
Okay, so I'll do my best. Okay, so yeah, out of all the stupid things I've ever done, running for mayor was the smartest by far. I got to speak truth to power in a funny, engaging way, where I got to it was one big spectacle, and I had no illusions of winning. I was running against Ed Lee, who had $2 million as a war chest before we even started. Although, to be honest, when the whole shrimp boy scandal happened, me and my campaign manager, we looked at each other like, oh no, what if we do win? It was like, because I've talked to numerous people who were very, very good investigative reporters who told me they're 100% convinced if Ed Lee was still alive, he would have got wrapped up in all the Mohammed Nuru stuff, and that he would have gone down with this corruption scandal. I can't say that for a fact myself, but some very smart people, very good reporters have told me that. But yeah, so I didn't win, thankfully, because the only way I really could have lost that election is if I won that election. Because then I'd have to be mayor of this place. It'd be very, very difficult.
And then you would have been in the phone booth with a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is the problem with San Francisco is everybody agrees on 90% of the same thing. So that 10% of stuff we don't agree on is nasty. It gets real ugly because you have to separate yourself from the other person, And yeah, I'm better serving. I think I'm better serving the populace by agitating from the sidelines and getting people to laugh at what's going on.
Well, my coworker is here, who is a fan of yours. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, Tammy.
Yeah, my name is Cami Dominguez. I'm a reporter here. I've been following. So I I've been following your Instagram page for a while, so I'm part of that new wave of people who found you through social media. I think that's very telling of the journalism industry, in and of itself. But I think that there's a certain transparency and realness that Broke-Ass Stuart brings to the journalistic landscape that a lot of people want more of. I think there's actually been a lot of smaller newsrooms popping up with this idea of inherent progressiveness that's embedded in the journalism, which is very different from traditional media.
Yeah.
So why do you think there is an importance for pages like Broke-Ass Stuart?
Someone has to do it. This is the Bay Area, and having a voice here, there's a lot of voices here, but I expect everybody has something to say. It's San Francisco. But I think it's important to speak up for people who don't always have a voice, and one of the things I've been most proud of in my life is getting to use my platform to amplify voices that don't get heard, and also giving them the opportunity to do it in their own voice. It's not my job to say what you want to say. My job is to help you say it, and so even back in 2014, my friend Shakina, who's trans, she had a call on my website. It was about dating while trans, and nobody was doing that at the time. There was some queer organizations, some queer publications, but nobody who wasn't specifically queer. And I was like, we need your voice to be doing this, Shakina. Please do this, And even from the very beginning of Broke-Ass Stuart, even from my New York City book, we had other writers help, other voices, because it can't just be about me. I can talk about myself all day long, but not everybody wants to hear that. And so yeah, I think. But by getting to amplify other voices is what I'm here for. And if I can do that through Instagram or through newsletters or the good old written word, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, well, kind of follow up. So you mentioned how you like traveling, and I love that you say you're from SoCal because I'm actually from San Diego. I was born and raised in Chula Vista, and then I moved up to La Jolla area.
I grew up in University City.
Oh my god!
I went to UC High. How about you?
I went to some Canyon Crest Academy. Yeah, exactly. But I think that for me personally, I think the time that I spent in Southern California, so you mentioned you also were in LA, and plus the other travel that you've done, how have you felt that that's impacted or influenced the journalism that you do today?
Well, traveling in general is the best way you can learn about yourself and the world. I've been in maybe 30 countries and 30 states, and and you learn a lot about where you're from by leaving, too, You learn what your inherent biases are. You learn what you expect just as normal things, which is like, oh well, I guess that's not normal other places. What's normal in San Francisco is not necessarily normal in Utah. It gives me, a lot of experience. I mean, also my high school, I mentioned UCI. I'm very lucky that it was magnet school, and so people were bused all over San Diego to go to my high school. And so my group of friends from junior high and high school were so diverse because they were from every ethnicity imaginable. Like you open up my yearbook and it looks like a United Colors of Benetton ad, Whereas so when I got to UC Santa Cruz, it was a lot less diverse. I was like, oh, everybody's white and Asian. And so I was like, where's everybody else? Whereas a lot of people I know didn't have diversity until they went to college. And so I think all these things, just like having other viewpoints, having other experiences, getting to see other points of view, it influences who I am and allows me to do a better job of reporting on the world through different lenses, I think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. My God.
Thank you.
So, Cammie, when did you first? So you came up here for school. When did you first encounter Stuart's work? And what was your first? How did you use it? How did it interact with your life?
The exact date, please.
Yeah. I went to SF State. I'm very proud Cal State alum. I was in my student newsroom, and I have like a history of like I was a student organizer on my campus, and I was a fellow in Dean Preston's office, and it was just kind of known in the student newsroom that I was more progressive. So someone had told me, it's like, do you follow Broke-Ass Stuart? And I was like, oh, I've heard the name, but I don't know if I follow the Instagram. They were like, it totally seems up your alley. And absolutely it was. It was very refreshing to see that, because it made me, it was like very comforting in knowing that, wow, like this is something that's possible. Because I feel like the route that most J schools have you believe is that legacy media and all of these like corporate papers that, it's like I noticed that lack of where's all of like the progressive takes that I'm hearing like around the city, like where's like the community input. I absolutely love like the content of your page. Bunny, I think has garnered like some pretty good attention.
She's doing some great work.
Yeah, like very great people you have like also freelancing for you. It's really like a wide scope of views, which is why I enjoy like your page as much as I do.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we're definitely punching out of our weight class, because like we like, I mean, I think the entire Broke-Ass organization makes the equivalent of like one senior editor at SF Standard Race. We don't make any freaking money at all, and I feel terrible because I can pay. I want people to say I will pay you terribly. I am very honest about that, but I will pay you to do great stuff, and I'll give you a platform to do it, and then hopefully a lot of people can from there might graduate up to something they can give them healthcare. It's so frustrating because knowing how well we do with nothing, and imagine what I could do if we had actual money.
Yeah, it's always with the smaller like news. I know that's like something similar. I've freelanced for like 48 Hills before, so it's kind of like the same boat, but they're voices that are necessary and appreciated.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Utah, because that's where I was from.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, a very interesting, different world. Went to DC for activism, and then for work at NPR for a while, and definitely legacy media. And it's been interesting to see how that's shifted and changed, because I still have those values of objective journalism as a useful thing, but I've been slowly convinced that what we used to call advocacy journalism should be kept on the same level, maybe not mixed within the same organizations, but that they both are strong values. Because without that, then, as you say, certain voices get lost. Or I think what really happens is even if you're a legacy journalist who has goodwill and good intention, you will tell the person's story from that community. That person will not be telling their story from the community. And I think that's the powerful difference that we are finally coming to realize, is that all of the degrees and all of the things. I don't have a journalism degree. I have a broadcasting degree, which is just a little AA degree that got me into broadcasting. And I learned journalism at my first all news station. And that was enough. I learned the values and the how you were supposed to report and tell the story. But it allowed a working class kid to jump into journalism. And so I think that that's really exciting that now we have more venues to let that happen. And that is an upside to what we see now in the way of journalism, rather than just this really limited pathway to disseminate information.
I think I agree with that mostly, but I'm a little worried about where things are going with the different pathways, because there's just too much information and our stupid little monkey brains can't handle it. And so I do think we need some kind of gatekeeping system that allows to have more voices within that gatekeeping. There needs to be something that says, hey guys, this is totally BS. Like there needs to be like some kind of, and especially as we go forward to the next, like, I don't know, 2 years, when AI is going to absolutely eclipse what it's at now, because technology moves exponentially. Like this, I don't know if you've seen what's going on with the new Sora 2 thing. It's wild. You can make a video of like literally anything. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is frightening that how do we rebuild those trust models, and how do we rebuild the idea that you have to prove your work? You have to prove what it is. Here at the public press, we file FOIA requests, we do interviews with experts, and we have multiple levels of editing so that what we put out is as close as we can get to factual information.
Yeah, I think that doesn't happen on TikTok.
Right, it doesn't, and that's the damage. And then we all know that the problems that social media is causing and the disaster that it's letting. I remember interviewing people in the early days of the internet, and they were talking about how wonderful it was. Everybody was going to have infinite access to information and be able to have their own voice heard, and it all sounded really good. But we didn't think about the fact that it was also going to amplify all of the crap out there, all of the just bizarre stuff that people could say.
Yeah, the information superhighway is actually the disinformation monster truck rally. It's just people just like crashing their ideas against each other. I've got the bigger truck. Like it's absurd. This is the worst possible way the internet could have gone, but here we are.
So, talk about that phase. You watched that evolve, and your business and your brand evolved in that era where we went from you had to know the name of the website to get to it, which is why we had people driving billboard trucks around with the names of websites pre-Google, and moved through that era, and then we went into social media era. So what's been your experience as you look back on that?
Well, it's weird. I realized recently that I'm actually one of the very first like online influencers, because I was doing Broke-Ass Stuart on MySpace, and I understood social media intrinsically as soon as I saw it, because I'm a very outgoing, gregarious person. I like to go out and do things, be part of things. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, cool. I've got a brand. The brand should be out there, and this should be the brand, on the internet. And it just made sense. And now it's a little different, because like now I'm, when I was once part of the Vanguard, now I'm part of the established group now. It's kind of funny, like, oh, TikTok, that just sounds difficult. But I tell you what, if we had, I started making zines when I was 23, and that's the closest thing I had to the means of production. If I TikTok when I was 23, I'd be a TikTok star by now, because I turned a stupid piece of paper pamphlet into something. What imagine you could do if I had a whole editing suite on my phone? When I was young and hungry and had fire and wasn't tired and lazy like I am now. So it's a wild world, and seeing it all happen so quickly the past 20 years, it's just been interesting to see,
So what do you hope to see happen in the next decade here as you move into middle age?
I'm already solidly in middle age, I think.
You don't have any gray yet.
My beard is now salt and cinnamon, I think. I don't know. I think we're in a place where technology is moving very, very quickly, and I think having a 5-year plan. If you made a 5-year plan 4 years ago, you didn't plan for AI. So like we are in a place where I've never been good at like being like, oh, 10 years from now I'm gonna be doing this. So I just kind of got here from putting one foot in front of the other, and I'd be like having this goal like at the end, hey, by the end of the year I want to put out a book, or hey, I want to do a TV show, hopefully, as opposed to be like, I've got this whole plan that I'm not that organized enough for that, So 10 years from now, is that the question? I hope I'm still here. I hope,
Yeah.
like
Well-
more than anything, I plan on being here. We have to figure out ways to continue to fund this thing because all that's going to change too, But I'm like a cockroach. You can't get rid of me.
Tell me the name of the book one more time,
Yeah,
and
it's
remind people when it will be coming out.
It's called The Worst of Broke-Ass Stuart. It just came out last week or this week, whatever. The book release party was on October 17th. It was awesome. We would drag and burlesque and live music and circus acts. And then they also, the city of San Francisco had declared that to be Broke-Ass Stuart Day.
Cam, anything you'd like to add?
I always like to ask people, especially journalists, and also a good wrapping question is what do you love about your job?
Free drink tickets when I go places. I like getting, like I said earlier, I like getting to platform people who would maybe not be heard otherwise. That's my favorite part of it, because there's enough white guys with beards who get their opinions out there,
Civic Presents comes to you from the San Francisco Public Press. Find all our reporting at sfpublicpress.org and this episode and others on our Civic podcast feed. Our theme music is by John Dillon. Additional music is supplied by the Blue Dot Sessions. Our team includes Executive Director Lila LaHood and Civic contributor and reporter Sylvie Sturm. Special thanks to Stuart Schuffman for his patience in producing this interview, and thanks to San Francisco Public Press reporter Cami Dominguez for their taking part in the interview. Civic airs Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. on KSFP LP San Francisco. New episodes enter our podcast feed on Thursdays. I'm Mel Baker. Thanks for listening.